All right. Let me see. Is this thing on here? Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? All right. I think we're good. But welcome everybody. Welcome to our first ever live stream Q&A. So, as some of you may already know, I got the chance this past week, to travel to LA in California to attend E3. Which was courtesy of Nintendo of America, so huge thanks to them for providing me with the badge to go. But at the convention, I actually had quite a bit of time to try out some of the new games that they were premiering during their Nintendo Direct. A couple of the biggest ones were Link's Awakening. There was also Luigi's Mansion 3, and there was also Pokemon Sword and Shield. I don't know why I'm totally blanking on there. But those are the three big games that I got to play at Nintendo's booth, along with a slew of other games, but I think those are going to be the three most notable out of the bunch. So, over the past week, I asked you guys to send me questions so that I can answer them in a following video, and this is that video. So, I'm going to go ahead and start with the questions that have already been submitted, and you guys that are in the live chat here. Also, huge thanks for everyone that's tuning in live. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Squid Alec, Kazumi, DJ Riolu, Powerful, Anime, Pika, Rick. Kermit says, I saw you, but you were at the Shadow Link and I was shy. I was just shy. Kermit, feel free. Anytime you see me at a convention or anywhere, feel free to come up to me. I would definitely love to meet each and every single one of you. All right. So, as I said, I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the questions that you guys have already submitted to me. And you guys can feel free to keep asking them in the chat, and I'll get to them once I'm done reading these off. So, let's go ahead and start off, I guess, with the first question of the day. So, our first question comes to us from Philip, who says, the Link's Awakening trailer showed Link with more hearts than it was possibly able, there was a little bit of a typo here, but it was possibly to get in the original. Can we assume that this alludes to a bunch of extra content in this game? So, I'm gonna go ahead and level with you guys. I actually have never played Link's Awakening, so, oh man, I feel like such a Neanderthal for suggesting that, but I can't personally vouch for anything beyond the new dungeon builder mode that they talked a little bit about during the Direct, but Aonuma did recently do an interview with Kotaku in which he discussed this a little bit further, which reads as follows. Which the quote here says, obviously we have improved the original version, and we wanted to do that, but also we wanted to keep that memory of the original playing the game. The essence of what made the game what it is, and by recalling your memory for the past when you have beaten it, if you have beaten it, I think that makes it even more impressionable if you play it again. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really sound like they're fully committed to the idea of adding a bunch of new content, since they want to sort of maintain the original vision and the original intent, I guess, of the first one, of the original release. So, one new element, as I said earlier, that the remake does have is the Chamber Dungeon mode, which I think that's the official name, I'm not actually sure, which essentially lets players make their own dungeons, which is super cool. Although when asked if its success could lead to a Zelda Maker of sorts, Aonuma responded by saying, I can't predict the future, but if people do love this idea of arranging dungeons, I'll keep that in mind going forward. So, hopefully one day we do get a chance to see that, but for now it doesn't sound like it's currently planned as far as we know. So, there's that. So no face cam today? No. We're just going to be hanging out and answering you guys' questions. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to get to you guys' questions when I'm done reading these off. So, our next question comes to us from McPim67, who says, what was your favorite Pokemon that you encountered? Favorite Pokemon that I encountered. Okay, so I'm trying to think of how to answer this. So, I encountered quite a few Pokemon during the demo, which, by the way, was only limited to the Water Gym. So, I didn't actually get a chance to see any of the wild area or any of the towns or anything like that, but they did outfit you with a full party to take on Nessa's gym, and two of the Pokemon in that party were actually entirely new Pokemon that we haven't even seen featured in any of the trailers as of yet. Those being Impidimp and Yamper. Both of those are actually really interesting designs, and my mind is already wandering with the possibilities of evolutions for Yamper, but my favorite Pokemon thus far that was also in the demo are either going to be Wooloo or Corviknight. So, if you ask me, I would definitely choose, let me see here. So, Corviknight, because I like the design. It comes across very dark and brooding, while I also like it because it's very much, you can tell that it's very much accustomed to interacting with humans, being that it's basically Galar's taxi service, as you can see in some of the trailers, that it like buses people around from town to town. I think that's a really cool detail. And Wooloo, simply because that thing is just so darn cute. They live in packs and they're fluffy. I mean, what more could you possibly want? Mr. Doggy, welcome to the stream, man. Adam Moore. So the next question comes to us from Adam Moore, who says, how reparative, which I'm going to assume he means repetitive, do you think Luigi's Mansion 3 is? So, I don't think it has any indications of being repetitive thus far. Granted, the demo itself was rather short and revolved around only one boss fight, but I think things are looking great for this game based on what we've already seen. The mansion... Holy crap. I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. The mansion... Okay, so the mansion has been reduced back to one building rather than several. So the environments themselves maintain the spooky vibes of the original, and Portrait Ghosts are seeing somewhat of a revival in the form of these new boss ghosts. I actually really enjoyed the demo for Luigi's Mansion 3, and as someone who is a big fan of the series, I only want to see it be the best that it can be, and 3 seems to be seeking to address some of the big issues that Dark Moon for the 3DS had, while also making some general quality of life improvements overall. So, to make the game more enjoyable, and a few instances of these quality of life changes that I can think of off the top of my head include the new, simplified, and basically to-the-point tutorial, because like in the demo itself, there is actually like a 2 to 3 minute tutorial, I want to say, that kind of just basically taught you, like, you know, this is how you use the flashlight and you use it to stun ghosts, and, you know, you suck them in, and then after a certain amount of time, you can slam them and do extra damage and whatnot. The funny part about that tutorial, though, is that you were testing all those mechanics on, on the ghost pup. I don't remember its official name, but the ghost dog. So you were testing all these abilities on your dog, and it's just, it's really funny, but... I really admired the fact that they, you know, kind of left you a little bit hands-off as far as learning how the game is, you know, supposed to operate, other than that small little tutorial. So, the combat, right? So the combat itself in Luigi's Mansion 3 actually gains a little bit more depth through the addition of the slam mechanic, which is actually quite satisfying to pull off. All in all, as a Luigi's Mansion fan, I think 3 is looking to be the revival we've all been waiting for, honestly. It looks really good, it plays really good, and, like, based on what I was able to surmise just from the small amount of time I got to play it, I didn't really see any glaring issues or anything that I genuinely had a problem with, so I'm super excited for Luigi's Mansion 3 later this year. Haha. Our next question comes to us from Root Snail, who says... What are your thoughts on Pokemon making a lot of Pokemon untransferable to Pokemon Sword and Shield? Alright, so this is quite the hot topic these days, isn't it? So, here's the thing. Honestly, I feel that the situation, as it stands now anyway, is kind of all over the place. There's tons of information floating around regarding the whys, and tons of toxicity being thrown at Game Freak for even thinking about not including the entire national dex. And for me personally, the thing is that while I personally don't love each and every single Pokemon ever created, every Pokemon up to this point means something to someone. So some people really love Flareon, right? Others really love Nuzleaf. And yes, there are probably some people out there too that really just adore Stunfisk for some reason. Anyways, if I was to sum up my viewpoint on this, it would basically just kind of boil down to, do I care to use any of the older generation Pokemon to play through the main story of Sword and Shield? No. Would I like to be able to transfer them and be able to use them in the post-game? Absolutely. So for me, it won't necessarily be a deal breaker, you know, whether or not Game Freak decides against bringing the rest of the generations in, but I still think it would kind of suck for those that do. I think I can really empathize with people too, especially when you consider that this announcement, actually, comes right after the announcement of Pokemon Home, a service that's supposed to let you keep and transfer your Pokemon between most of the current games and games moving forward. So that could be a contributing factor, but nonetheless, Game Freak has a pretty big decision to make before November, and it'll be interesting to see which side they end up taking. So there's that. Plumey, welcome to the stream, dude. There are over 900 Pokemon people. It's just not realistic. I mean, I can see both sides, honestly, Mika. So, I mean, it just really kind of boils down to how you personally feel about previous generations. But for me, it's kind of like, it's not a deal breaker, but I would like to see it still. Michael, welcome to the stream, dude. Devin, how's it going? All right. So, let's go ahead and move on to our next question here. Boy, that was a topic, wasn't it? So, our next topic here is going to be... Our next question, I should say, comes from B-Man. So, our lovely B-Man, I know, right? B-Man says, how does the new Pokemon open world section feel? Does it feel good or need a lot of work? Sadly, I didn't get to play it, as I said earlier. The only particular area of the demo that they... the only particular game in the demo that they had on... Hold on, I'm getting my words mixed up. The only portion of the game in the demo was the water gym. And... based on the trailers that we've seen so far, I'm sort of... I have mixed feelings about the wild area, because while it might... the concept itself is interesting, but based on the footage we've seen, it doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot going on in the wild area outside of encountering wild Pokemon. So that is another area of the game that I'm interested to see more of, but for now, it's kind of basically just going to be all sort of speculation. So... moving right along, our next question comes to us from... our next question here comes to us from... I think he's in the chat still. Our next question comes to us from Kizo. So, our next question comes to us from Kizo here. So, we're going to go ahead and see... how does Link's Awakening new animation style seem to you? Do you approve, and why? Okay, so... Kizo, I'm going to go ahead and say this too. I think the new style is actually a great fit. Now, as I said earlier, I've never played the original game before, but I think it's a great fit, especially with the whole toy figure aesthetic that they've given the world. It suits the game very well. And on top of that, it's just so freaking cute. I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of some of the dioramas that Nintendo had on display at their E3 booth. And it's nice to see that they not only carry on in the game's visual design, but also in each character's animations too. So the visual, effects for sword striking and shield blocking all appear very cartoon-like, and even the way Link moves around the map, it's almost like a slight waddle, and all this really just sells me on the idea that this world is very, toy figure inspired, and suffice to say, I really like the way the game looks so far. And as far as I can see, it's probably going to be one of the few good ways to take an older pixel sprite-based game and adapt it to the modern era. So I think when all is said and done, Link's Awakening looks really, really good. I feel like it's a Wind Waker situation where people are not going to like it or kind of like have a mixed reaction to it for now, but then as time goes on, people are going to become more accustomed to it and then start to really warm up to it. So anyways, our next question comes to us from Professor Shy Guy. Now, this one's actually really funny, and I don't know how many people are actually going to get this, but I'm gonna go ahead and answer this anyway. So Professor Shy Guy says, will Hey still be a voice command option in Luigi's Mansion 3's multiplayer mode, and will it sound just as silly? So... God, I hope so. Sadly, they didn't have the Scare Scraper mode available for demo, but I will say that I have so many memories with this mode, and those voice lines were something that really stood out. So, for those that don't know, Luigi's Mansion 3 and a lot of Nintendo games in general just don't have voice chat built into the games. So, as a workaround, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon incorporated these these emotes or like these little voice lines that you can trigger to kind of alert your teammates of like what's going on around the map, because the place is big. And one of them is Luigi saying "Hey," and it sounds weird. Like the intonation of it is weird, and like just the way it's delivered sounds very robotic in a way. It kind of sounds. He's like, what does it sound like? He's like, "Hey," or like something like that. I don't know. Overhead. And there's like a couple of other voice lines, but God, I still can't believe they're bringing that mode back. I'm still so blown away. But I really hope that they bring that back in some capacity, because if I was to venture a guess, they're probably not going to be incorporating any sort of voice chat into Luigi's Mansion 3 as well. So it would be nice to have those voice lines to be able to have some form of communication with your teammates during those missions. So, moving right along, our next question comes to us from Aiden. So, Aiden says, is Gooigi a good mechanic? Yes, actually. Very much so. The interaction with Gooigi is nearly seamless, actually. And some of the puzzle-solving sections in the demo that I played, while a bit on the easier side, were still quite clever. I remember one part, there was one part of the demo where Luigi kind of stumbles across this spike-filled floor in front of him, and there's no way around it, and there's no way over it, and there's a key on the other side that you need to get in order to progress. So, what you end up having to do is use Gooigi and have him walk through the spikes to grab it for you, basically taking advantage of his elasticity and overall, gooiness? I don't know. But there were a couple of other parts of the demo that had some very light puzzle-solving sections as well, and each of them were just as satisfying. Also, one little detail I do love, when Gooigi is walking around, you can actually hear his slimy footsteps as he navigates around the mansion. I thought that was really funny. Yeah, that haze from Alec is my new ringtone. Please, dude, please. Devin says, I joined your Discord server not too long ago, and I have to send a verification email, but I don't want to do that because my parents can only... Oh, is there a way I can change this? I don't think so currently, Devin, but I'll let you know if anything comes up that will allow you to circumvent that. So, squish, squish, I know, Mika, it's so cute. It's so cute. Gooigi, as much of a meme as it is at this point, I think Gooigi is going to be a really good mechanic and something that really defines this game and kind of like brings it into its own, I guess is like a way to say it. But moving right along, our next question comes to us from Dog Weasel. So our beloved Dog Weasel. So he asks, they're not going to answer this, but maybe bring up that talk on the net is Link's Awakening's Dungeon Builder might be a dry run for a Zelda Maker type game in the future. Okay, so I guess kind of boiling this question down, is this going to be sort of is Link's Awakening's Dungeon Builder mode going to be sort of a dry run for a Zelda Maker type game in the future? And he continues, also, I'd love it if Mario, Peach, and Toad were playable skins for multiplayer, in addition for Luigi/Gooigi clones in Luigi's Mansion 3. So, hey, Dog Weasel, how's it going? I'm gonna go ahead and answer this question. So I actually don't know the answer to this one currently, but I'm gonna go ahead and assume no. I mean, for now, Aonuma hasn't made any remarks that would indicate that there are any games that they plan to eventually adapt the Dungeon Builder into a, like... currently, there's no plans, as far as we know, to turn Dungeon Builder into a Zelda Maker game. But, boy, oh boy, that would be cool. Just imagining all of the endless, awesome content that people could produce from a game like that. That would be so amazing. Like, you just think of, like, all the cool stuff that people build in Mario Maker, right? And just adapting that into, like, a Zelda dungeon. Man, that would be so cool. But I don't know. They haven't really talked about it, and there's no information floating around out there that alludes to that or points to that direction. So sadly, I don't think it's in the cards at the moment, but, you know, you never know. So, so in regards to Mario, Peach, and Toad being playable in Luigi's Mansion 3, I don't see that in the cards currently either, but, as I said, you never do know. I mean, Bowser just got his medical license from Dr. Mario World, so if he can do that, then by all means, anything is possible, right? So... Alright, so that's going to bring us to the end of our previously submitted questions. So now I can go ahead and start to shift my attention over to the live chat here and start taking some of your questions now. So, let me go ahead and fast forward here. So, Pika Power, earlier, our first question of the day comes from Pika Power, who says, when does Animal Crossing come out for the Switch? As far as we know, it's going to be, I think they said March 3rd? Sometime early March. I can't remember the exact date, but March of next year, so in 2020. An interesting thing about that, though, is that it came to light over the course of E3 week that the reason for that game's delay, and a couple of other games in Nintendo's recent history, is a result of Nintendo's commitment to employees' work-life balance. So, basically what that means is there's this thing called crunch in the video game industry where... oftentimes, I mean, I'm going to say oftentimes because you see it a lot in headlines and stuff, but obviously I don't work in the games industry, so I don't know how often this does happen, but there will be times where a game is in development and there is a certain deadline that needs to be met in order to get that game out, and it's all very corporate, right? But Nintendo's commitment to a work-life balance, it means that Nintendo puts its employees' health first before the actual game. So this is overall good for a number of reasons. Number one, it gives us a better game in the long run, which is great because, if employees have a better work-life balance, they're, assumingly, have a better sort of, how should I put this? Mental disposition. So basically, they're just living healthier lives and not really bound down by the stress of having to meet a deadline. So I feel like someone working under those conditions, as opposed to someone who's overworked and stressed, leads to better quality of work overall. So not only do the employees lead a healthier lifestyle and get to have that really nice work-life balance of the stuff that they do for these games, but we also get a better game in the long run because Nintendo's able to take their time and stuff like that. So I think you guys get my point, but Animal Crossing Switch, to answer your question, Pika, comes out early March of 2019, or 2020, excuse me. So that was our first question. We're going to go ahead and move on from there into our next one. Powerful says, will you stream Mario Maker 2? Absolutely. Polterpup. Oh my god, thank you so much for jogging my memory on that, Works. I appreciate it. Jabron says, which game you've seen are you going to stream first? Whichever one comes out first, honestly. Pretty much every single game that I played on the E3 show floor were really good. So I enjoyed Link's Awakening. It was great. It played well. Although I've never played the original Link's Awakening or any 2D Zelda game for that matter, I really enjoyed my time with it. And I'm excited to finally delve into that format of Zelda games come that game's release. So I think out of the bunch from Pokemon, Zelda, and Luigi's Mansion, I believe Link's Awakening is coming out first, I think in September. So that will be the first one out of the bunch that you'll see on the channel. Let me see. Next question here comes to us from... Sorry, I'm just having to scroll through here. Octopengi, I see that question, and I'm going to go ahead and omit answering that for now. All right. Nax says, with E3 out of the way, who do you want for the 2 remaining DLC characters for Smash? So, oh boy, that's a hard question to answer, Nak. So, honestly, for like the past... this sounds very hyperbolic now that I'm saying it out loud, but for the past, like, almost 10 years, I've wanted Banjo-Kazooie in Smash Brothers, and now that they're finally in with the announcement at E3, albeit we have to wait until fall, but they're basically in at this point, okay? We just have to wait a little bit. But with them out of the way, I don't really know. I mean, I have a lot of other contenders for that spot of, like, who I would want next, but the most wanted character that I had, like, of all time ever was Banjo-Kazooie. So now that they're in the game, like, I feel like it really doesn't super matter to me who releases next, because my most wanted character is in the game already, so, you know, what more could you want than that? But if I had to pick, I would probably narrow it down to characters like, oh boy, I don't know if I'm going to catch any flack for this, but probably characters like Master Chief from Halo. I think that would be a really cool addition. Phoenix Wright, also from Ace Attorney, would be an interesting fighter to see adapted into a Smash Brothers game. And I actually included a couple of these that I'm about to say next in a recent video, but I would say Urbosa from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild would be a cool addition, or Sidon, honestly. Urbosa or Sidon, if I had to choose between the champions. They would be cool, and I guess my last pick would be Shantae. Yeah, Shantae from the Shantae series. I think any of those characters would be a pleasant surprise and a nice addition to the Smash Brothers roster, but as I said, now that Banjo-Kazooie's in the game, I could really not care less who gets added next. I feel like whoever it is probably going to be good anyways. So whether or not it's my picks, I honestly don't really care. Oh, man. Mork says, what was your favorite part of each demo at E3? Ooh, that's a good one. So, my favorite part of each demo. So, I would say my favorite part of the Link's Awakening demo is the dialogue throughout the game. It seems very tongue-in-cheek and very self-aware in a couple different ways. I remember there were a couple points during the demo where a character would say something and I would just giggle to myself because it was either really silly or just kind of funny. And I thought that was good. I thought the a couple of the dungeons that I was actually able to crawl through in Link's Awakening were really fun to play through. Being a Zelda game and all, it had a couple of light puzzle solving elements to it. And also the combat itself felt very fluid and very just natural, you know? I didn't feel lost, you know, having not played a 2D Zelda game before. You know, a lot of the familiarity that comes with having played the 3D Zelda games carries over into Link's Awakening. So I would say the combat, the dungeons, and the dialogue were some of my favorite parts of Link's Awakening. My favorite part of the Pokemon Sword and Shield demo was probably... I would probably say the overall speed of the game. I feel like that's a very niche thing, but for me personally, I've been playing Pokemon my entire life, right? And I feel like Pokemon sort of plateaued at a certain point. I can't really tell you when that exactly was, but basically it got to a point where battles and like trainer battles and just all this stuff kind of just felt slow, in my opinion. Like, the animations were long, the ability to speed through text was, you know, not as fast as I wanted it to be. And some people might know what I'm talking about, some people might not, but I would say the overall speed of Sword and Shield is something that I really found satisfying, because I didn't feel like anything was too slow, you know, it was very to the point, and while the animations and stuff were flashy, they weren't, you know, 10 years long, right? So, like, if anyone remembers back in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, you know, if you were to use like a Z move, for example, or if you were to Mega Evolve a Pokemon in the past, those animations take forever. And I'm not here to say that, you know, they shouldn't animate them, because they're beautiful animations, but at least provide me the option to kind of like skip through them, because having seen the Z move animation 100 times for Pikachu, I mean, it gets to a point where I kind of just want to skip through it because I've seen it so many times. So I would say the overall speed of the demo was great, and the UI itself was also very, very pretty. I'm sure some of you have actually already seen screenshots of the demo so far, and I'll tell you what, the user interface and all the battle screens and stuff were really, really pretty and really easy to read. So I would say the speed in the UI for Pokemon Sword and Shield. And Luigi's Mansion 3, my favorite part of that demo, oh man. Oh man. So my favorite part of Luigi's Mansion 3, I liked so many things about that demo. I feel like it's going to be hard to pinpoint one, but I will say the combat itself was probably the most satisfying it's ever felt in a Luigi's Mansion game, because everything kind of just chained together so well. So basically, when you're in combat in Luigi's Mansion 3, there's a sort of order of operations to it, you know? So the first step is to, you know, stun the ghost with your flashlight, which is step 1. They're stunned, you start sucking them in with your poltergust, and that's whenever you start dealing damage to them. But then, after a little bit of time, you can actually use the slam mechanic to deal extra damage to the ghost and deal splash damage to ghosts around them. So it kind of starts this little bit of like a chain reaction just based on, you know, getting that combo started. It's really satisfying, I will say that. I could not get enough of slamming those ghosts onto the ground, as violent as that sounds. But I would say that that's probably my favorite part of Luigi's Mansion 3, but there are so many things that I loved about that demo. Like, the visuals were amazing. I would say, you know, the soundtrack itself is great. Just, like, the character designs themselves, too, were also really, really good. They don't, like, the ghosts themselves don't look quite as bland or as generic as they did in Dark Moon, which is amazing. And speaking of ghosts, too, I mean, like, the boss fights in this game also look a lot more memorable, a lot more, you know, in-depth, I guess I could say. than they did in Dark Moon 2. So I kind of addressed this earlier, that Luigi's Mansion 3 is going to be addressing some of the major issues that I had with Dark Moon. So, oh man, I just loved everything about that demo. I don't even know if I can pinpoint it down to like a couple of things, but I'll go ahead and stop myself there. So let me see. I'm going to go ahead and transition over to our next question here. So let me go ahead and scroll through. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with a couple things at once here. Let's see. Jabron says, what is the non-game thing announced at E3 that you're most excited about, excluding Banjo? Non-game thing? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Jabron. If you don't mind clarifying that for me really quick, Jabron, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question, but I'll come back to you. Okay, so Dog Weasel says, they still don't do one thing I want in Pokemon games, battle animation and text simultaneously. Oh my god, I know. I don't understand the reasoning behind that. If I had to reason with myself and kind of come up with an explanation, it might just be, maybe just because they kind of want to, sort of funnel your attention to one thing at a time. But even then, like, I don't know. I don't even think that's really a good enough excuse for me. I'm not sure. Octopengi said, did you see Rosalina in the Luigi's Mansion 3 demo? I did not. The only characters that they've shown off so far are Toad, Professor Egad, there was also Luigi, of course, Mario, and Peach. So those are the only characters that we've seen in the demo so far. Aiden says, what game are you most excited for? So, out of all the games that I got to play, I would say, but, oh man, this is going to sound so funny, like, watching this archived and listening to myself ogle over this game, but Luigi's Mansion 3, definitely. 100% is the game that I am the most excited for, which is weird, because I'm a lifelong Zelda fan and a lifelong Pokemon fan, and Luigi's Mansion hasn't been around quite as long, like, anywhere near as long, and yet Luigi's Mansion 3 just left this really good impression on me that I can't wait to play it, you know? Like, I felt so sad having to put the controller down and, like, because my time was up. I just want to dive into it again. It was so good. It was so good. So, to answer your question, Aiden, probably Luigi's Mansion 3. Jabron says that isn't a game, like Smash DLC, updates, Splatfest, something that isn't directly a game. Okay, so I see what you mean. So, to answer your question, the answer is most obviously going to be Banjo-Kazooie and Smash, but if you're going to make me exclude that one, I would probably follow up with the Splatoon 2 Final Splatfest update, because it looks like they're definitely going all out for that one. Also, with all the stuff that they're bringing to Splatoon, what is it, 5.0? Version 5.0? It's all around just going to be a really great update, and I'm excited for that. What, Luigi's Mansion? I never would have expected this. Yeah, I know, Jabron. I know. Totally unexpected. Totally out of left field, I know. Natsumi, welcome to the stream. Natsumi says, do you think Link's Awakening is like Cadence of Hyrule? You know, in some ways, yes, but I would actually reverse that narrative and say that Cadence of Hyrule is like Link's Awakening, because there is already a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? A very established foundation of what makes a 2D Zelda game a 2D Zelda game, and I feel like a lot of the elements that make up a Zelda game transitioned well into Cadence of Hyrule. So obviously, if you take out the rhythm mechanic, Cadence of Hyrule basically kind of just plays like a regular 2D Zelda game. And I would say that, yeah, they are pretty similar in a lot of ways, but I think at the end of the day, Cadence of Hyrule is the one that's kind of like games before it, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. That game is really, really good. If anyone hasn't played it yet, definitely consider picking it up. Super Bowser, welcome to the stream, dude. How was the Pokemon demo? It was great. It was great. They only allowed us to play through the water gym, but I heavily enjoyed it. I heavily enjoyed it. Not quite as much as Luigi's Mansion 3, but the demo that I played of Pokemon Sword and Shield actually fully sold me on that game. It's, I don't know, like, having watched the trailers and stuff, while I was excited, nothing really stood out to me as far as, you know, what makes this game distinct from the other games before it, but having played through the demo and seen some of the stuff that they were talking about at like during the Direct and like the Pokemon Direct before it, it's really got me excited for it. So we're gonna have to wait all the way until November, sadly, to play it. But yeah, I generally enjoyed it. Rick says, would you agree that the more memes characters like a playable representative from Undertale or Minecraft should be in Smash? So for Sans and Steve, you know, obviously I've already got my most wanted character in the game anyway, so I don't really have strong opinions on who should be in the game next, but as much of a meme as they are, I would say that Steve and Sans, well, maybe not Sans, I would say Steve more so than any other, would be a generally good thing for Smash. You know, some people are going to be like, why would you say that, blah, 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 blah. Hear me out. Smash Brothers is a game that is all about bringing some of gaming's most iconic mascots and putting them into one game to fight against each other. And I feel like Minecraft has gotten to the point where it's very much a big influence on like the games that came out after it made its debut. I'm trying to word this correctly, but I think you guys get what I mean. So I think that, you know, Minecraft Steve, while it is a big meme, I feel like would be a generally good addition. You know, the more big name icons that you can get in a Smash Brothers game, I feel like is better. You know, so it wouldn't be my first pick in the slightest, but I wouldn't necessarily be like angry or anything. I feel like I can't even conceive of like which character that Sakurai could add to that game that would genuinely make me mad. You know, I feel like any character is an overall good thing, and you know, I feel like a lot of the anger for me, or sorry, not a lot of the anger, but a lot of the frustration for me in the past was characters getting added that weren't characters that I wanted. But now that I have the character that I most want, you know, I can kind of see things with a more level head now. So to answer your question, I think it would be a generally good addition. Mika's coming in with the next question here. Which demo/announcement that's not Banjo has left the biggest impression on you? Whew. Which demo/announcement? I'm gonna go ahead and exclude Luigi's Mansion 3 from this discussion. from this question. Because obviously that game was just, I loved it so much. But outside of that, I feel like the announcement for Banjo would be another obvious choice, but you said that's not Banjo, so Luigi's Mansion 3 and Banjo. Aside from those, I would probably say like the new update that's coming to Splatoon. It's gonna be really good. Cadence of Hyrule, actually, while it wasn't really talked about a whole lot at E3, has actually been really fun as far as what we've played so far. So I've been really enjoying that. The announcement. Ooh, here's a good one. The announcement of Animal Crossing New Horizons, actually, and the demo gameplay that we got to see at the Treehouse was so good, so good. They didn't show off a whole lot, like hardly anything, but based on what we've seen so far of that game in that world, it looks so good. It looks so good. The trailer was just perfect, and the gameplay itself, I mean, there was a couple things that I noticed about the Treehouse gameplay that I could go into, but for the sake of time, I'll just go ahead and talk about one that I really, really liked. So in the past, when you picked up fruits and when you picked up items off the ground, you had to manually go into your inventory and stack them on top of each other so that you don't have an inventory full of like singular items taking up space. In the demo, it shows that items automatically stack in your inventory. So I think that's a really nice quality of life change. I think the island aesthetic is really, really cool. I think that's a nice little spin on, you know, town building. I think that's going to be a cool mechanic. I still want to know if there's going to be any sort of multiplayer or anything, because in the trailer, like towards the end, you see a bunch of player characters gathering around on this character's island, and I don't know if that's supposed to allude to multiplayer of some sort or what. But obviously, we don't know a whole lot about the game at this point. But come March, I'm excited. I guess is a good way to sum that up. I'm excited. Animal Crossing New Horizons looks amazing. Next question from Aiden says, "What are your thoughts on Astral Chain?" My thoughts on Astral Chain haven't really changed since our discussion with Proxence, so I'm just gonna go ahead and keep it simple and say that I'm excited for it. It looks, or I wouldn't say I'm I'm meh about it. I don't know why I said excited. I'm meh because it looks good and aesthetically pleasing, but I don't know if it's my type of game, so I'm just gonna have to wait and see if I get an opportunity to play it sometime in the future. But it looks good, all things considered. All things considered. Our next question comes to us from Neck again. Oh, wait, no, that's actually, never mind. Morks. Okay, so our next question comes to us from Morks, who says, Alec, are you going to ditch Lucina for Banjo? I don't know. It depends on how Banjo actually plays. We'll see, though. It's just going to be a matter of waiting and, you know, seeing how his kit plays out. So, but based on the footage, it looks very true to their games and authentic. So I think that is generally good. I'm excited. Our next question comes to us from Octopeggy, who says, would you enjoy for Prince Fluff to make another appearance and be a Smash DLC? Who's Prince Fluff? Am I missing something? Who's that? Natsumi says, do you know the full roster from Mario Olympics? I don't, sadly. Here's the thing, though. I got the chance to play Mario and Sonic at E3, which was like one of the side demos that they had. And it was actually really fun. I've never played a Mario and Sonic game before, but I really enjoyed it. A couple of the mini games that I played were with Shadow Link, and we played things like the skateboarding minigame thing. Would you even call them mini games? I don't know. But we did like the skateboarding event. We also did like archery, surfing, boxing, or no, it was like, I think it was like karate or something. But needless to say, I had a lot of fun, and now I'm actually genuinely looking forward to actually playing the full game. But the roster that they had there, like what we could play, consisted of, I believe it was Amy Rose from Sonic, Sonic the Hedgehog himself. I believe there was also Shadow the Hedgehog 2. There was Peach, Mario, Bowser, Donkey Kong, Yoshi, Dr. Eggman. And my memory's kind of hazy after that point, but there's quite a few. There's quite a few characters in the roster. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than that. Let me see here. Let's. LeBron says, "What was your biggest surprise? Banjo-Kazooie getting added to Smash." Mika says, "I only said no to Banjo because you made it very clear you're happy." I feel like at this point, if anyone doesn't know that I'm just head over heels about Banjo-Kazooie being in Smash, then you're not paying attention. I talk about that freaking announcement every single chance I get. Cadence of Hyrule, Link's Awakening, why not both? Mika says, items automatically stack in Animal Crossing now? They do. They do. You can see that in the gameplay. There was only one segment, I believe, that they had for Animal Crossing New Horizons during Treehouse. So I believe you can actually just go through, like, Nintendo's YouTube channel, and it's like a half-hour block of them just playing Animal Crossing, and you can see it in action there. It's really, really good. I love that edition so much, but there's so many other things, too, that you could go into. Nak says, I should be going. Have a good day. Have a good one, Nak. Thanks for the questions. Oh, yeah, okay, so Breath of the Wild 2. Mika, how could I forget? My biggest surprise, she says, my biggest surprise was Breath of the Wild 2. I never expected that. So, I would say the same thing, but here's the thing, like, during our E3 live reaction stream, I actually called it, saying that I feel like we're gonna hear something about the new Zelda game that's in development now. I didn't think it was gonna be Breath of the Wild 2. I didn't think that game was gonna get a sequel, but I am super happy about that as well. I mean, we don't know a whole lot. I mean, same thing for Animal Crossing and a couple of other games we've already talked about, but Breath of the Wild 2 especially, because it was like, what, a 20-second cutscene, and then, like, Hyrule Field, and that's it. So, we don't know a whole lot about that game, but needless to say, like, as much as I enjoyed Breath of the Wild 1, and playing through that game, I feel like Breath of the Wild 2 is just going to be more of the same, you know, just very, very satisfying gameplay, very open world. There's a lot of discussion going on right now about what sort of thematic direction the game is going to take, and honestly, I kind of hope that it does take a little bit more of a darker spin on the Zelda universe, like Majora's Mask did, and that's sort of the conversation that I see going on a lot on, like, Twitter and a couple of other social medias about the game. People are thinking that it's going to take a little bit more of a darker turn, which I would really, really love. You know, I loved Majora's Mask. I loved Twilight Princess. While Twilight Princess isn't quite as dark as Majora's Mask is, still, I like seeing Hyrule in that sort of like dark and despaired sort of light. So I would love to see Breath of the Wild 2's interpretation of that, and I'm excited for it. I don't think there's much more I could say other than I'm excited for it. Magic Vasco says, when do you think Breath of the Wild 2 will be finished? My guess is like 2021, latest in Q1 of 2022. Let's see. Aiden says, what are your thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII Remake? I've never played the original, but it looks good. It looks fantastic. And the visuals themselves are a huge upgrade. I can't even imagine being a fan of, you know, the low polygonal, like, really retro-looking original Final Fantasy VII, and then seeing all that stuff interpreted in the way that it is in this game, like super HD, capable, I think, of going up to upscaled 4K if you use a PS4 Pro. Man, like seeing those side-by-side comparisons is just so satisfying. And I've never even played the game, so I can't even imagine like being a fan of that franchise and like seeing that. Oh, that would be so cool. That'd be so cool. But I'm excited for it. I'm going to try and play the original before the remake comes out, but even then, at the very least, I'm going to play the remake. Mork says, what was your favorite part of the non-Nintendo conferences? Mine was Cyberpunk 2077. That game looks fantastic every time I see it, and they've been talking about it, for like the past 2 or 3 E3s now? Each time, it looks better than the last, so I think that game is going to be really, really good, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Oh, also, Halo Infinite looks interesting. I don't know if it's going to be good, per se, but I'm a pretty big fan of Halo, so it'll be cool to finally be able to jump into the boots of Master Chief again and see what that story unfolds to. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of that trailer, to be honest. Would you agree that Keanu Reeves is breathtaking? Yes, and he agrees with me that I am breathtaking. Everyone's breathtaking. Gibran says, what game did you think would be meh, but turned out to be amazing? If it's Luigi's Mansion 3, what is the second? You know, honestly, yeah, I thought Luigi's Mansion 3 was going to be a lot more underwhelming than but it actually wasn't. I was thoroughly surprised. I heavily enjoyed it. But outside of that, I would probably say Link's Awakening, because for one reason or another, and I can't tell you why, I've just never been drawn to a 2D Zelda game and playing through one, but playing through the demo of Link's Awakening really sold me on the idea, and I can't wait to play it. So I would probably say Link's Awakening was like the game where I was expecting it to be sort of meh for me, but I really enjoyed it. Thoughts on the Ni no Kuni remaster? I can't wait to play it. I played like a couple hours of the original, and I want to play it again, so this will be a good opportunity. Hopefully it comes to Switch, although I don't know if they've actually talked about that. Aiden says, if we get another Dark Zelda game, I'll be happy. Dude, same. That would be insane. I would love that. Mika says, 7 Remake looks gorgeous compared to the original. It's no contest. Absolutely. Final Fantasy VII's Remake is, like, I feel like going to be the new standard for how you want to do a remake in the future. Albeit, hopefully it doesn't take quite as long for other remakes in the future, because that game, when was that first announced? Like, 3 years ago or something? It was some absurd amount of time ago, it feels like. But I feel like the way that they're doing that remake is just going to be where other studios are going to look to inspiration if they ever consider doing remakes of their own games. So I think it's going to be really cool to see. Octopengi says, if you could have one more Pokemon as a DLC, even though it isn't possible, who would you want it to be? Oh, are you talking about Smash? Probably Blaziken. I really like Blaziken for some reason. Were you disappointed that Odyssey didn't get a sequel announcement? Yes and no. I mean, I don't know. A part of me still hangs on to the idea of Odyssey eventually getting DLC, but as Proxens kind of brought up in our previous discussion, I actually don't know if that made it into the discussion, but we were talking about it a couple weeks ago, and he kind of brought up the point that if they were going to do DLC for that game, they probably would have done it already. So as time goes on, I find myself agreeing with him more and more, and Honestly, I'm not super bummed that they didn't release any information about a Mario sequel, because if they did, I feel like the like the amount of content in Nintendo's E3 presentation would be so packed that it'd be hard to have a sort of like general focus. So I'm not upset, but I want to know more. I want to have another Mario game, and even though it doesn't feel like it's been that long since Mario Odyssey, I would just like to know that there's one in development. Super Mario Galaxy 3 would be my top choice, but honestly, you can take your pick. Mika says I want Sunshine too. I would also be okay with that. Honestly, pretty much every 3D Mario game is amazing, right? Because you have Mario 64, which is obviously one of the greatest games of all time. Then you also have like Super Mario Sunshine, which is good. Mario Galaxy is my favorite Mario game of all time. Mario Odyssey was amazing. So, honestly, they could do anything with 3D Mario, and I would probably be happy. Thoughts on the Destroy All Humans remake? I'm super excited, says Aiden. It looks fine, I'm not chomping at the bit to play it, but it's cool to see something that I previously thought had been long gone. Oh, I think it was actually. I don't know. I don't know the history for that series, so I don't know. But it's funny to see a series like that and make a comeback too, because I didn't think there was a fan base for that. Speaking of games that I didn't think there were fan bases for, can we talk about SpongeBob? Like that SpongeBob game? I never played through Battle for Bikini Bottom, the original one. And at the time, when it first came out, here's a little bit of history for you. When that game first came out, I remember seeing it on the shelves of Hollywood Video. Like video game rental stores. Hollywood Video, Blockbuster, those things. I remember seeing it on the shelves of those. And even then, when I was a wee youngin', I still wasn't entirely like, yeah, I want to play SpongeBob. I was kind of like, it's a SpongeBob game, how good can it be? So when this remake was announced, I was like, oh, that's cool. But then the whole entire internet, my whole entire Twitter timeline blew up with excitement over this game, and I was like, what? Who played this? What? Apparently everyone. So Mika says I remember renting and playing that on GameCube years. Same. I remember seeing it in when I would browse for games that I wanted to rent. I would see that on the shelves, and I would just think what I said earlier. I would just think yeah, it's a SpongeBob game. How good could it be? But apparently, it's supposed to be pretty good. Aiden says Battle for Bikini Bottom best SpongeBob game. Listen, no, I don't mean any disrespect by saying this, but how highly competitive of a category is best SpongeBob game? How many other SpongeBob games are there even? I don't know, but I thought that was pretty funny. Rick says, who's your favorite Pokemon? My first Pokemon game was White. Zekrom is best legendary, and Snivy is objectively the best Pokemon. My favorite Pokemon have been, for a while, Rayquaza and Umbreon. More specifically, Shiny Umbreon and Shiny Mega Rayquaza. I think they just have a really, really cool look about them, especially in their shiny form. So, Jabron says, what did you think would be... Wait, I already read that. Wow, I'm stupid. Do you think there will be a new Banjo game? I hope so, Morks. I genuinely hope so. If, at the very least, I would like to see some sort of remaster of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Whether it be on the new Xbox console that's coming out or on the Switch, I really don't care. I would just love to play through them again, because currently, the level of accessibility for those two games is very, very low. I think the most recent release that they had was Xbox 360. Yes, I did, Javron. My answer to you was Link's Awakening. There was the SpongeBob movie game. I actually don't remember that one. Aiden says, do you think Sly Cooper is a possible candidate for Smash DLC? Possibly. I never played Sly Cooper. I never owned a PlayStation in my younger years, but I think it would be cool. As I said earlier, I feel like gaming mascots like that, no matter how much of a meme they can be, just generally are good for Smash Brothers. So I would definitely like to see that if it's possible. I don't even know what the rights to that look like. Actually, is there anything at this point that disqualifies a character from being DLC? Because we all thought that it was going to be, Bayonetta was too sexy, Ridley was too big, Banjo-Kazooie, they don't have the rights to it, and, all these characters are here now, so... It seems like the rules are being bent and broken. What was your biggest... Oh, okay, so Jabron says, what is your biggest deception as far as games? I mean... I don't know if I can answer that one, honestly. I don't feel like anything that I played was necessarily deceiving, or anything that was announced that was necessarily deceiving, so I would say that pretty much every game I played I had a generally good experience with. Super Bowser says, I have a question for you. When do you think we will get Mario Kart Tour? Before or after Dr. Mario for mobile? So, you know what's funny about that is I actually don't think this part made it into our discussion with Proxence either, but I was sort of expecting Mario Kart Tour to get a surprise release during E3. I obviously wasn't expecting them to talk about it at all during the presentation, but I was expecting at least some form of a release date confirmation, or even just fully releasing the game, because they just did that beta. Apparently the game ran very well according to several sources, so I was fully expecting it to finally release, but we know so little about that game. I don't know. I feel like, when was the original release date for that? Wasn't it a month ago or something? They said something around Q2 of 2019 or something like that. I can't remember. It was so long ago, but I was expecting it to be during this past week, but we still haven't heard anything, so I don't know. And it's weird because we haven't heard anything, and yet Nintendo's out here announcing other mobile games like Dr. Mario World. What the heck? What is... So I don't know what to believe, but I would expect sometime before September. Probably sometime before September, just to kind of qualify for that summer time slot. But at the same time, who really knows? We haven't heard anything about it, so. What, you've never heard that argument before, Morks? That was the big thing that people didn't think she was going to be able to make it in. Rick says, I want Shantae for Smash so I can have the best use for camera control. Whoa, dude. Whoa, dude. Hey, listen, alright? I agree. I'd love to see the Nicktoons games get a remake. I've never played any of the Nicktoons games before. I've never played any of any movie adapted to game or TV show adapted to game, so my experience with those kinds of games is very, very limited. I did play Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets for GameCube once. I rented it from a Hollywood Video. Echo Fighters won't be decent. Yeah. What about a remaster of Nuts and Bolts? No way. Get out of here, Morks. I don't even want to hear that. Propaganda. All right. So, we've been sitting here talking about stuff for about an hour now. So I think this is a pretty safe place to go ahead and end off today's Q&A stream. So I want to thank each and every single one of you that was here in the live stream and everyone that was able to submit a question. I genuinely appreciate it. It was really fun getting to sit down and answer these for all of you. And let me know, do you guys prefer these live streamed Q&A format, or do you prefer the pre-recorded format? I don't know. Q&As are still very much new to me, so I would like to hear what you guys think. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream off for the night, so you guys have a good rest of your evening. Thank you all so much again for submitting questions, and if anyone watching this right now or archived has any more questions to ask, feel free to post them down in the comments below or on the Discord as well. We have a channel specifically for that, so feel free to ask away, and I'll do my best to keep up with them as time goes on. So, anyways, you guys have a good rest of your evening. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and as always, I'm alecandstuff, and I will see you all again real soon.